welcome to the New Legend Podcast. We're here today with the good friend Matt Mugar.
Woo-woo.
Yeah, and here in West LA.
West LA.
Yes. So as always, we're here to celebrate vintage 4x4s, family culture, adventure, being a man of the 21st century. So Matt's a guy I've been actually wanting to talk to for quite some months now. So Matt, thank you so much for having us out.
No, thank you very much. I've been watching and listening to the podcast
A little closer. Yeah.
Awesome. I've been watching and listening to the podcast for the last few months, and I've been pretty impressed.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we're still trying to, let's be glad that we build a better truck than do a podcast. So
no, you guys didn't.
And we got your beautiful 72 Scout behind us.
Well, if you guys know, this is the famous tan Pippin.
Tan Pippin, that's right.
The tan Pippin. We had the green Pippin.
Yes.
This is the tan Pippin, and in LA, it's, people know it as the really rugged tan Scout that you guys have built.
Yeah. So we're gonna explore a lot of things, and I'm really excited actually to talk to you because just at first a little bit of context. Really, Matt and I, it was a bit like we kind of got to know each other through the business. Like Matt wanted to get a Scout, which that's one of my burning questions is why a vintage 4x4. We'll get to that later. Yeah. But man, in the context of this machine, we've actually we're forging quite a good friendship, man. We talk about deep things. It's been pretty amazing.
I think initially when I was referred over to you by Stefan and by some of the other guys out there, I never thought in my wildest dreams I'd be spending this kind of money to rest-a-mod a vintage 4x4.
Right.
I wanted to do it the cheap way, spending X amount of money.
Right.
And then I did it. Then I called you, and we started to really develop this communication, and I started to see the bigger picture of why I was doing this.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I want to really dig into today. But first, you've listened to the show.
Yes.
You know what's coming. What was your first car? We've talked about this, and you have some fun car stories. But what was your first car? What did it mean to get your license?
Well, I'm going to unleash some truths here that I kept as a secret for many years. But, as you probably can tell, I'm of the Asian descent, and in Los Angeles in the early 90s, there was a very unique car culture that sparked the import tuner style. So my first car was...
so you were influenced by that car culture?
Very much so. And this is before social media, before YouTube.
Rad.
It was what I lived, breathed, and died.
That's awesome.
So in 1992 to 1993, it was really big if you had a lowered Honda Civic or an Acura Integra, Honda Accord, anything that was Honda or Toyota.
Okay.
So when I was 15 and a half, I bought my first car.
Nice.
And it was a Honda Civic DX Coupe, no air conditioning.
Okay.
It was the cheapest of the cheapest I could get.
Yeah. And isn't there like a DX and an EX? Like, I don't really know those.
DX is the lowest.
Okay.
It had no power steering, had nothing. I said,
really?
I just wanted to look a certain way because I was going to build it up.
Okay.
But we got ripped off. My dad has no idea about negotiations, and I realized that then.
Yes.
And we just basically got raped on the price. And, something that cost $11,000, we ended up paying $18,000. And this is back in 1994.
What?
So
it was brand new.
It was brand new.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty impressive first car to get a brand new Civic EX, man.
We had talked about it, and maybe we'll go
DX or EX?
DX.
DX,
The lowest of the low.
Okay.
But, I've been working since I was 11.
Yeah.
I was actually getting my first, W-2s at 14. So I had been saving my money, and I wanted a black Honda Civic DX.
Yeah.
Because I was going to peel the sticker off.
Got it.
Right? And then
Because that was like a thing. It still is a little bit like peeling all the emblems off cars.
Yeah, debadging everything, right?
Debadge.
So, that was my first car.
And what did it mean to you? So you picked it up at 15 and a half. So you were obviously getting excited about driving. What did that mean to you to get your license?
So interesting enough, I was very ashamed of this, but I had failed my test so many times that I had to retake the permit test, mainly because I had bought the car before.
Yes.
And I was so and by the way, I could drive. I was driving at 13 or 14 already, stealing my mom's Mustang GT, and driving it around the neighborhood.
I think that was I know that was a thing in my generation. How old are you?
I'm 40.
So I'm 45. So we're similar generations. That was a thing when I was a kid too, out in Connecticut. Definitely used to take my parents' cars. But do you think kids are doing that today?
No. They're too lazy and they got it too easy. They got Uber now. You know what I mean?
That's true.
I feel like kids don't want to drive anymore, right?
Yeah.
They're like, they'd rather either be connected to their smart device. And for me, it was about getting my license and getting on the road. I literally, from the day that I did finally pass the test, and I kind of passed it by going to a more ghetto area of LA.
Yeah.
And I tried
That's right, because you had to go to a different DMV.
Yeah, I went to the same DMV here in
They're
Culver
like,
City.
not you again.
Not you again. So I went to Inglewood DMV, which, Inglewood up to no good if you guys know LA.
Yeah.
Back in the day when it was really hood. And I remember trying to bribe the guy to pass me the test with some boxes of Christmas chocolates. Well, I passed, and in the end, right as soon as I got in there, I popped in my favorite CD and just started strolling,
And that's
driving.
the dream, man.
Yeah. So getting your license at 16 was very important for me.
And again, and I don't know if you guys that listen, I don't know, but I don't know if you're sick of this question, but I don't get sick of it because I always learn something new, and it sheds a lot of light on what people are thinking and how they're processing technology and culture. But what do you think? You talked about the younger generations. What do you think is the future of driving?
So I think we can always say that every older generation thinks that the newer generation are a bunch of hippie, easygoing kids that never work for anything in their lives. And that's what they said about the kids in the 90s. And we say that about the kids that are millennials. But the future of driving, it's interesting. If some of you guys have watched that movie Minority Report, we're in it now.
Yes,
technically we're in it.
That's crazy.
We've got automated driving. We've got the only thing different is instead of that those cars coming in to pick you up on the side of the hotel or wherever you're at, it's Uber drivers. Right, it's all going through an app, and all this new technology of moving things through around retina scan. We're all there. You know. And, since I'm in the business of logistics, it's all about automation of logistics and robot drivers that people are talking about this.
So you are probably uniquely in tune with that reality, being in the logistics trucking business.
Luckily, I have a lot of experience with talking about transportation, trucking, ocean, all that. But a lot of it is in terms of automation. We are highly connected to it right now because this is the one part of the economics that people are trying to economize, right?
Yeah.
And most of the world doesn't know it, but drivers are in short supply, and it takes a specific kind of person to drive a truck.
And it's isn't it like the number one kind of blue collar job in America? It's like there's a lot of it's pretty big, man.
If you're a truck driver, you can make up to 6 figures easily. And if you're from Louisiana, or if you're from the Midwest, making 6 figures is something that can be really great. It's also very stable.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's also probably the most dangerous job.
Yeah, and health. I always think
health-wise is the worst.
Like, I spend a lot of time on the road. Like, I've driven hundreds of thousands of miles over the last 15 years in particular since we moved out to the Midwest. So to me, truck stops is a bit of a second home. And I'm happy because there is some movement towards healthy food options and different things for these drivers. But man, famous story I think I've shared on the podcast before. One time I was at this truck stop and this dude shows up with those 1 gallon soda mugs.
Oh yeah.
Not it's the quadruple big gulp thing. He had 2 of those, 128 ounces of soda. And he's like, this will last me the next 800 miles. I'm like, bro, you're going to kill yourself, man.
Well, truck drivers are a different beast, especially the long line haul drivers.
Yeah.
Our company, we have 12 53 footers.
Yep.
And we cycle in 12 drivers, especially local drivers. And I'm telling you right now, the biggest issue that drivers face right now is fitness.
Yeah.
Sitting's the new smoking, right?
Yeah, interesting.
So
that's interesting.
But, people are trying to, what we do is we try to give drivers the ability to have healthy snacks, access to water, workout regimens. We try to suggest certain things to up their score in terms of driver fitness and fatigue.
Interesting. So, future driving, and I want to thank you for introducing me to a first experience. So Matt, you have a Tesla.
I do have a Tesla.
And you let me drive it.
Yeah.
And I've been like a holdout for sure. I'm a motorhead, man. So but I'm coming around big time, and got to drive it. It was pretty cool. It wasn't life changing, but it was pretty cool. What are your impressions of like electric cars?
Well, it's interesting because obviously it's going to be the next wave, right?
Yes.
They're going to automate electric cars just because people want to get off foreign oil, right?
Yeah.
And they're doing it already with the Tesla trucks and Tesla semis. They're going to do it. It's going to happen in the next 10, 20 years. My first impression when I got the Tesla, I was the most enamored person in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And for a couple of years, it was still the thing that I loved the most. But interesting enough, when I first got my first Scout, when I heard that V8 turn on, that 345, and I started boom, 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 and I just heard it. And it reminded me of my racer days when I had a 5-inch exhaust on a Honda Civic straight pipe.
Like the park can.
Yeah, and I just thought, I was like, man, I kind of enjoy this. I miss the smell.
Yeah.
So there's a nostalgic aspect that came with the truck. And I found myself not caring as much to get in my Tesla.
That's interesting.
And actually right now, my wife says, you got to, because, I got another car recently too. So she goes, you got to sell one of them.
Yeah. So let's just, if you don't mind being, so you got a Porsche, like a 911.
I did get a 911 recently.
And so modern performance car. Tesla, oddly enough, is like somewhat billed as a modern performance car. Like
it is.
Like the first, when I told my buddy, I'm like, yo, I got to drive my buddy Matt's Tesla. He's like, dude, how fast was it? Was it super fast? I'm like, it was all right, I guess. I mean, I don't know if we had it in like hyper mode or whatever.
We didn't, but it's okay. I mean, if we went on a straight line and you punched it, you would have felt the G-force pretty strong. But it's not the same as when you hear like the engine, and you hear the exhaust.
So contrast that a little. Okay. Like driving the 911, driving the Tesla. What does it do for Matt?
So recently, I turned 40, right? And on my birthday, the only thing that I wanted to do was take one of my cars up in the canyons of LA. And LA is famous for one of the most beautiful drives. Right. So I took the 2 freeway all the way up towards going to Newcomb Ranch, where all the racers go, all the Porsche guys go.
Yeah.
And I took it there, and I just drove up an hour through the canyons, opened up my windows, and put the sports exhaust. Yeah. And when you hear that exhaust rip, it's like there's something. I mean, the word is visceral. Everyone uses the word visceral, and it was just amazing. You just want to. And it was important that I got a manual.
Yes, that's huge.
And
it connects you that much more to the machine.
Yeah, and there's something about Porsche that, even though it's one of the, it's an older Porsche. It's 2008, right?
Yeah.
But dude, does it drive?
You love it.
100 times better to me than the Tesla.
Interesting.
So the Tesla's kind of like my dad car now.
Yeah, that's right.
All my cars are dad cars. They make fun of me at the club because every time I show up, there's a car seat in one of my cars. Yes. But that's who I am,
Yeah, and that's a part of it where I want to talk to you about passing on kind of a love for those things and what it means. And just another little feather in your cap, you also had a Mazda Miata.
I still do.
And you still have it.
I still have it. It's my dad's house.
It's so cool.
Yeah, so that car, actually, after the last time you were here, I whispered in my dad's ear. I said, hey, Dad, what if I turbo that for you?
Yes.
He goes, what does that mean? I go,
what does that mean?
I go, it'll be faster. And he said, really? He goes, how much? I go, I'll take care of it. He goes, okay, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Then he said, can we paint it too? I said, okay, yeah, sure.
What year is that one?
It's 1997.
So is that still like the traditional, the first body, like round one?
Yeah,
I love those.
It's the one with the frog lights that come up.
Yes.
But it's a special edition. That's why I picked it. It was a British racing green.
Yeah. He wants to change the color?
No, he wants to just touch it up.
Oh, yeah, got it.
But I like the complete stock. It's got the chrome wheels. It's got everything. And, when I sold my truck, which was back in college, I got that car.
Yeah, cool car, man.
And my wife and I, at the time, we were just dating. We did a road trip from here to Monterey, California.
Yeah, beautiful.
That's great on the one.
Yeah, amazing.
And I just had a great time with that Miata.
That's so cool.
You know, it's funny because people would make fun of people who drive Miatas.
That's right, but now they're super cool.
Now they're super cool.
No one's making fun of them anymore.
But I don't give a damn.
That's right.
I like what I like.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
it's
right.
always been that way.
And it's a fun driver's car.
It
and
is.
what's cool about, like, it says something about you that you actually kept it. Because most dudes, myself included, is like, nah, I'm on to kind of the next thing, and like it's gone. So thank you for keeping it in the family.
Well, I think next time you come out here, we got to go take the Porsche and the Miata out.
Oh
right?
yeah, for sure, man. That's gonna be so cool. Okay, so as you were talking about this visceral experience in the Porsche, one philosophy that we've always believed is that everything is more memorable in a vintage 4x4. So now you've added this Scout. You had the opportunity to drive. This one barely drove before you sent it out to Iowa.
Horrible. It was horrible.
But now you have a good running and driving, solid Scout. So what is it? That's what I want to dig into for the meat of our episode is why a vintage 4x4? What were you trying to connect with? What did it like? What was there a piece of like masculinity? I kind of want to talk to you about that kind of thing.
Well, the vintage 4x4, before I even got into like getting into cars, obviously people who are drawn to Scouts initially, especially out on the West Coast.
Yeah, how did you discover a Scout? Because there's like Broncos, there's FJ40s, there's Blazer.
Everyone here in LA wants a Bronco.
Yeah.
So originally, what had started this passion was 2.5 years ago. I watched the John Wick film.
Yeah,
and I was like, shoot, I want an Eleanor Mustang, or I want a Super Sport Chevelle or something.
Yes.
And right when I was about to pull the trigger on buying one of these trucks, my best bud, he was like, yo, dude, you always wanted a vintage 4x4. Remember the Broncos? And I said, yeah. So I started looking into them, and I realized how expensive and blown up the prices were.
Yeah, right.
And I actually had a really bad experience with a local shop here in Marina Del Rey, and they kind of just left me hanging high and dry.
With your green Scout?
No.
Oh,
this is pre-Scout.
Okay,
so
pre-Scout.
I literally came with a checkbook, you know, and I'm not going to name any names of this shop,
Sure.
but I went there, and I called, and I showed up a few times, and I said, I'm ready, you know, to make a purchase. And I showed up, and the guy made me wait an hour in the parking lot standing in the heat.
Yeah.
And then by the time I went to go talk to him, he had an attitude. So I literally just looked at him. I said, all right, peace out. I'm out of here. And I'm getting a Scout. So that's how it started.
Really? Wow.
And then I got my first Scout. And, you know, interesting enough about this car is kind of an accident, but it turned out to be a savior because my buddy, you know, when you get into a new type of hobby, you want to do it with your buddies.
Yes.
Because it's a way to bond and to get close. So I talked a couple of my buddies into getting Scouts.
That's awesome. That's the way you do it, man.
Yeah,
I love it.
You know, that's a problem. When I like something, you're gonna like it too.
Yeah, that's right.
So I got both of my buddies getting Scouts, and one of them got this Scout while I had my green Pippin.
Okay.
And at the same time, he was like, dude, this thing's blown up. It's just, it's horrible. What do I do?
This tan one.
Yeah, the tan Pippin.
How funny.
And I ended up having to, you know, I made a promise to him. I said, look, man, because we come from different, you know, backgrounds in terms of what he's doing for work. And he also had just met a girl that he was getting pretty serious about. And I made him a promise. I said, look, if you get serious with this girl and you want out, I'll buy it out from you, and I'll sell my green Pippin, and then I'll take care of it. So it just worked out that
that's great.
That I bought this out from my buddy, sold the green Pippin, which I ultimately referred over to you guys.
Yeah.
And they were both there at the same time, which is really great. And you know, getting into the vintage 4x4 market, it's interesting because I think there's something raw and masculine about a guy in a truck.
Yeah.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I'm not pretending to be a very handy, crafty guy.
Yeah.
If I had the time, I probably would be. But I'm more handicrafted with my mind and what I do with work.
But to be fair, like there is an aspirational aspect of this that is like, now this enables me to get off road, to go camping, light a fire, like go connect with some of those kind of primitive things.
I think everything's coming together, right? Society's getting really entrenched with social media, getting really entrenched with technology, with our current president and, America as a whole, people want an escape to a certain extent, right? And the closest thing, what America's famous for is their national parks and their ability to go out and adventure.
Yeah.
And I think millennials nowadays, what they're famous for is taking selfies in places that people want to go.
Yes.
People don't know, but travel and restaurants are up like gazillion points.
Since like the 50s, like was the last like big, like the camper revolution of the 50s
Right.
and 60s.
But now it's because people are doing this van life and they're doing this like mobile living. And
Did you consider that at all?
Like,
did the van life thing ever go like, maybe?
It's cool if you're single.
Yeah. Daniela was like, heck no.
No. It's single if you're. It's cool if you're single, no kids, right? And you're just out to experience life. You're on a sabbatical.
Yeah.
But if you got a mortgage and you got a business, no, I don't think so. I don't think it fits in my lifestyle. So I needed to do the next best thing, which is the ability to overland, right? That's what drew me into this as well. And I think overland's kind of a new thing that's happening.
Relatively, in America.
But there's people that go really extreme.
Yep.
And I think that vintage 4x4 has a spot where that goes. It's like, I look at this and every time I look at it, it brings me joy. It sparks joy, right?
Yeah,
and I look at it and
that.
I'm like, yeah, I can go anywhere with this if I want to. But I'm just really connected to the past as well. There's a nostalgic element to it,
Mm-hmm.
And I think people who buy these trucks, if they didn't grow up with it, and the reason why they're drawn to it, it's because there's an ode to the past that says, hey, men, at least for me, men of a certain caliber were like this. They were able to do this and this, and I want to do it. So one of the main reasons why I did get into vintage cars was that I wanted to learn how to work with my hands.
Yeah.
So on the last time you were here, I got my first lesson, right?
Little mechanical lesson, yeah.
For you, it's probably a piece of cake. It was less than 45 minutes for you. But for me, it actually made me love my truck more.
Cool.
And it made me believe like, oh God, we just changed the brake calipers, bled the brakes.
Yeah.
And now it brakes on the 405 freeway at 75 miles per hour without making me feel like I'm losing traction or whatever.
Yeah, that's interesting. So let's dig into that a little more. Like, so I had a question written in my notes for you. Like, what's, but I don't know if it's a fair question. What's wrong with the modern male?
Dude, we're going to get in trouble.
Because you're like, one thing I respect about you and has drawn me to like love talking to you is you're kind of like a modern Renaissance man in the sense like you're big into disciplines like jiu-jitsu, martial arts,
kickboxing, boxing, fitness, anything fighting, fitness.
The way you approach your business is very like you think about it, you dream it, you kind of educate yourself, you go after it, you start building, pulling people into your vision. So yeah, because I guess it's not fair to say like. So let me give you an illustration. When my son was 3. My first son, he's 22 now. When he was 3, I had the shop, maybe 3 or 4, I can't remember. He was a little dude, but he'd come down to the shop, and I would just spend time with him, and I'm like, but he never loved it. He always he hated getting dirty, and so I would have him sweep up. I'm like, he's like, Daddy, why do I have to come down here? And one time I'm like, son, it's my role as a father to teach you how to be a hard worker. And he's like, yeah, but Dad, I don't have to get dirty to be a hard worker. And I said, that's genius. You're correct. Like you can be a hard worker. You can have all these masculine traits. Maybe if there is such a thing, we could talk about that. Again, it's just our opinion here, but, and not have to like be like digging ditches or wrenching on cars or, so what are some, let's dig into that a little bit.
So, yeah, I think that the definition of masculinity, it's subjective, right?
Yeah.
And I think that as being a father of 2 young boys, I got a now 5-year-old and I have a almost 18-month-old son. Both are sons, and they're both very rambunctious boys.
Yeah.
I think my older son's kind of like your older son, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't want to get dirty. He's very creative. He's very cerebral. I think masculinity, at least for me, has to have a little bit of everything, right? You have, it's something that I was raised on, like black and white movies, classic ode to how, maybe this is not the way people are nowadays, but opening the door for your date, pulling out the chair. That's old school for me. Paying for the date,
Just like you did our first time when you took me to the Brazilian barbecue.
Hey, I have to, man. The Brazilian barbecue is the bomb, though, right?
It was really good. We had it for a second time today. It was,
Well, you bought me today, so we're good, right?
Even.
But, there are little things that I think that in America, people are so ultra sensitive nowadays.
Yeah, right.
With the Me Too movement and, the Black Lives Matter. And I get it. I totally support everything.
Yep.
I believe everyone should have equal rights, equal pay. But there are certain things, like if you go to different countries, like Latin America, which I'm very in tune with. My wife's family's from Mexico. My business partner is from Brazil. So for the last 20 years, I've surrounded myself with very Latin people. Asia,
Yep.
I feel like the words that we use affect tonality and affect how people interact. And I think that at the end of the day, for me at least, being a man is keeping true to your word.
That's good, man.
Because you don't have to be a boxer to beat someone up.
That's right.
But if you make a deal, you're a single dad, you're like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I may not be with the mom anymore,
right?
But I'm going to be there for my son, even if it's uncomfortable with me, because I made this decision. That's a lot stronger than someone that can knock out someone with a punch or build a Ferrari by hand.
That's right, man. That's
so
good.
Commitment to word is what gets you to building those Ferraris, building those billion-dollar businesses. You can't be a man or a woman, without commitment to your word. But at least for me, if I say I'm going to do something, it might take some time, but I will do it.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think that kids nowadays, and this goes back to your original question, why does it seem like the current man or the kids of this generation, not all of them, but some, like the trend is this way, don't seem as committed or as manly as they used to be. And I think it really comes down to committing oneself to their word. Back when we were growing up, pre-pagers, right? If you told your friend, I'm going to be at the movies to watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1, in 1986, or I don't know what it was. If you said you were going to be there, you had to be there.
Unless you do the collect call trick.
Yeah, well, that too, right? I remember doing those.
Collect call from, Mom, can you pick me up?
And then, nowadays you got so many things bombarding you with messages, with phones. I can sit here and say, hey man, we should all go hang out sometime. And you're going to say, yeah, we can hang out. But deep down inside, you're not going to do it.
Right.
You're going to just send me a text the day of and say, oh, sorry, bro, I got really busy.
Yeah.
So I think that it's not 100%.
That's good, man.
It's not 100% the fault of the millennials that are in it, but the access to ever-changing things of content that just look here, and you're judged by how many likes or how many followers you have. It's crazy, That's what guides people. But if people can just say, hey, if I make a commitment to what I'm going to do and what I say, you build upon that.
Yeah.
And you get stronger and stronger. And the hardest part as we get older is also learning how to say no.
That's right.
To the right, saying no to the things that aren't good for us, and saying no to the people that are no longer good for us either.
Yeah,
that's also hard too.
Interesting. One thing that I think about this topic is taking responsibility,
accountability.
For yourself and for those around you, and that falls into like service to others, just different things. But I think about affluence and prosperity. Like I look at my dad. My dad had it easier than his dad, right? I had it easier than my dad because each generation you try to you're gonna. I'm sure it's motivating to try to provide a good life for your kids, and I think, and I certainly my kids, the way I treat my kids is softer than the way my dad treated me. And so I think it's not to any young people's fault, but when you get handed everything and you just don't ever have to you're not taught responsibility.
Right.
Whether it's that's why pets are great. Like for kids, like teaching them how to take sports teams are good.
Right.
Like membership to things, like just having young people belong, take responsibility for their action, keep their word. Those things, I don't know, it just seems like parents, which is me and you, are just like, I don't know, we want to appease our kids so much and just keep them happy that we forget that those things are critical to their long-term happiness.
So it's interesting you bring this up because, I'm a child of an immigrant, and we were very blue collar growing up. I'm not saying that we were.
Same here, bro. Straight from Poland.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So we weren't dirt poor, but we definitely were, lower to middle class people, but we didn't know any better. And I grew up, my dad was an entrepreneur kind of, he was a mailman, but he also had a carpet cleaning business.
Yeah, I love it.
And, at 11 years old, I was on weekends cleaning carpets with him. And it taught me a lot,
And did you love it at the 11-year-old?
I hated it. I hated it, but I love my dad so much that I wanted to be there for him. And I think that, now that I've got sons, it's interesting because, when they love their mom so much when they're young, you're like, will they ever love me?
Yeah.
And I realize now that, when I was doing that for my dad, and my son will eventually want to do that for me, you learn a lot being a son of an immigrant. I hated scrubbing stairs. I hated vacuuming. And, there was a part of it that also drove me because I'd do these really rich people's houses, and it built up inside of me. It's like, one day I'll be one of these guys and I'm going to be able to, not work so hard with my dad. But little did I know that cleaning carpets at 11 years old to 14 years old, and even until I was older,
yep.
It actually groomed me to be who I am today,
Yeah, that's amazing.
So,
another fun question. What does your wife think about all your little hobbies and...
my wife, it's interesting because I joke with some of the guys, that I need to create another Amazon account because she sees all the little things that I buy for my truck and all the other stuff. I'll be honest, if I wasn't doing well in my business,
obviously,
then she'd have a lot to say.
Yeah.
But luckily, I don't just buy things for no reason. I buy things because I think they're going to hold their value or they're special or they're going to appreciate.
Yeah, that's actually a great perspective.
So I do things that combine fun, that may be an economic stay point or at least maybe make some money.
Right.
So my wife, she thinks it's crazy. She thinks, why don't you just get, a Chevy Suburban?
And your wife is an LA girl, right?
She's an LA girl.
So you got the tan Pippin here.
Yep.
72 Scout. It's a soft top.
Yep.
And you said you took your family for a little beach adventure.
Just last week.
It's kind of funny. And some of you guys that are listening will relate to this.
So my wife is the typical mom, and she cares about her sons. We joke about it all the time that, obviously she'd hang me out to dry before her sons, right?
Yeah.
So what happened last week was I got because I had Sean install car seat anchors into the back of the trunk, and I set up both car seats.
So you did this. You set them all up.
Yeah, and I was
dialed.
like, we're going to go to the beach. We're going to go out on town. And as soon as we got on the freeway, she looks at me and she says, is this safe? It's all open. I go, it's fine. She goes, we got to go home. We got to go home. For
LA choppers, man. We're good.
Yeah, well, this is LA, right? So we ended up coming home, and she sends me to CHP just for peace of mind. And for me, it's like, I'll get out of the house.
Yeah.
So we got it in, we went to the beach, went to the park. And,
wait, you went to the CHP. You want to share about that?
Oh, yeah, I went to the CHP, and I was like, hey, my wife made me come here. My wife made me come here to check and see it because she wanted to do it. I actually had to call the fire department. They sent me here.
Wow.
So the guy looks at me and goes, dude. Oh, sorry. No, he didn't say dude. He said, sir, that's a really cool truck.
Yeah.
The second thing he said was, sir, to be honest with you, I can't tell you shit about these seatbelts or these anchors because that's your job. I go, really?
It looks good.
He goes, but it looks good to me.
That's right.
So I said, all right, I'm out. So we ended up.
So that is a good husband of you. I don't know if I would have had the chops to do that. I would have been like, Heather, it's totally fine. Just get over it. But that's good of you to do
No.
that.
Actually, I just did it to get out of the house. I wanted to drive the truck. I had just gotten it a week before or 2 weeks before, and I was like, any chance I get an hour of driving around? I mean, dude, there's so many of these scout guys that are like, yeah, honey, I'll go to the grocery store for you.
That's right. Huh?
Or I'll go. I just want to get in the truck.
Yeah, that's right.
So, actually, she's been telling me to sell the Porsche.
Really?
Because she goes, I like the way you look in the Scout.
That's cool.
Better than the Porsche.
Yeah.
She goes, it's cool. It appears you're having way more fun.
Huh.
Both your sons want to be in that truck all the time.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But that was her first time? Was that her first time in like a vintage kind of rugged 4x4?
No. Actually, one of her first cars in high school was one of those old Cherokees.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
Grand Wagoneer. Sorry.
Yeah, Grand Wagoneer. Sweet, man.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that.
But it's so funny. I was like, why don't you love them? She goes, that was just the car my dad gave me.
Yeah.
So.
And let's be honest, a Grand Wagoneer is much more refined than a soft top Scout.
It is.
But yeah, so the boys dig it. They love being in it.
Before you got here, my youngest son was screaming to go all over. And once they get in, it's like they're on crack or something.
Isn't that weird? So what is that?
I think it's all the levers and all the buttons and all the shiny
noise.
things. It's everything about it. Like,
that's crazy.
They just jump around. They go crazy. It's like a little jungle gym inside there.
Because I have these we have this this family that lives in our neighborhood that he's a golf coach, not a car guy. I mean, I don't know if maybe he's a closet car guy, but they don't have any vintage cars.
Right.
But they have two sons, like probably 4 and 2, and they just freak out. Like when I pull in, they're always in the front yard playing. They're just pointing, and then I think they asked the mom, like, can we go see the trucks?
Right.
And they always come in, like, they touch the big tires. Like, they're just, little boys are just so drawn. But, like, interesting, whatever it is. But I have 3 little girls, are neighbors, and they could care less about the trucks.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things, like, for example, my son, I have never taught him anything about boys or girls,
right.
Blue and pink. It's just not how I do things. But for some reason or another, he instinctively knows, I don't want the pink one. I want the black one, or I don't want ponies. I go, why not? And I'll josh with it. And I'll be like, hey, let's get this one right here, this lunchbox, and he'll say, no, Dad. No.
But I think it's similar to, like, I don't want to drive in the Porsche. Like, I want to drive in the Scout.
Yeah.
It's like there's just something rugged and cool, and that's something that I've been super drawn to. Like, I was like I've still talked about in the podcast. I'm a muscle car kid. Like my dad was kind of in that era, and I was always drawn to those. But man, when I discovered like a truck, like I can off road in this thing, and I can go. I think what you said earlier is really key. It's like that spirit of adventure and exploration, because it opens up all these places and things to you.
I think, when I listen to your podcast, I end up thinking about things and wanting to respond to some other people's comments, wishing I was at that table as well. What comes up for me is that guys like me, which are city slicker guys, not guys that are going out camping or fishing every day. It's not like the guys in Iowa or the guys out in Colorado, When I see something like this, it's a suggestion that there's something else outside of the city, right?
That's powerful, man.
It is, right?
Yeah.
So you look at it and you see these tires, you see these roof racks, you see all the lights, and you're like, a part of the reason why I'm attracted to it is because there's what I'm doing right now, right here. 9 to 5 in an office. Actually, it's more for me.
Right,
12 hours, and
for sure.
Then I got to come home. What's calling me is to go out there and adventure, right? And I think that's what everyone wants in their life.
Man. That's a good perspective.
And I think that people like me, like our friend Manny, he's a doctor out in Georgia. We share thoughts all the time. When we get into our scouts, the idea is like, we might work in an office or a lab or a surgeon center or whatever, but when we get out, I'll put some Chris Stapleton in, or I'll play some Pearl Jam or whatever, and just bump it and just head on out. And it makes me feel, even though it's an urban jungle here in LA, it makes me feel like I'm not just in the typical BMW.
Right. That's neat, man. Okay, so that was good, man. Thanks for sharing all that stuff. It's fascinating, because I'm really fascinated by like the entrepreneur. It's not like you're just got nothing better to do, so you're looking for hobbies, but it's just something to tap into that essence of what drew you into the vintage 4x4. I think is insightful for people.
I think that most Americans, especially middle America, are entrepreneurial at heart.
Yeah.
And when you're an entrepreneur at heart, especially if you're an children of immigrants, there's a big sense of adventure going to the next place, new country, new everywhere. And if you're an entrepreneur at heart, you're always looking for that next adventure, that next risk to hopefully gain something, whether it's perspective or it's money or it's value or it's love, whatever it is, you're always looking for that next thing.
Interesting. So let's give a little practical tips, because you are also, by this point in your young vintage 4x4 life, you're actually pretty seasoned with some ways to approach ownership of a vintage 4x4.
Right.
So what are some things you learned? What would you do different if you had to do it over? Because you just for some general context, you basically approached like paint body aesthetic first.
Initially with my first builds.
So what have you learned?
So what I've learned, which is always, the right way to do it, is to start with the foundation.
Yes.
Right. Obviously, again, that goes back to the inexperienced mind. We're drawn to a look of a car, an aesthetic of a car, because it draws us to be able to say, I'm a part of this nostalgia, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is, just because you put, lipstick on a pig, you know what I mean?
Right.
You think that by putting makeup, or you think about putting, a paint job and some wheels and tires, you think that it's going to change, it's going to drive like that new Audi over there.
Right.
But it's not, right? So what I've learned is, first, if the foundation is right, the chassis is right, the suspension is dialed in correctly, it's not too high, it's not too low, you're going to get a better functioning vehicle. Hydro boost brakes, all these things that I didn't have in the other build that I had. It's like a night and day experience, Yep.
So there would be because this is always my encouragement to either A, just do the whole shebang at once, like a comprehensive kind of build, or start with a solid foundation, like you said. In my opinion, we've talked about this on the show. Rust as rust free and non previously repaired truck as possible.
Right.
And then start going after mechanical, because you can enjoy and drive a beat up looking truck, like if the paint's faded or whatever, but it's hard to enjoy it the other way around.
I think that there's something very nice about a truck that's a sleeper, right?
Yeah.
That's fully functional with an LS motor, great suspension, good stance, good everything, but looks like it's a patina machine, you know?
Yeah.
But then when you get in it, it's like your little secret, right? It's like you don't know that this is a badass truck.
Right.
But, for guys like me, we end up doing the full Monty,
Yeah.
And with this current truck, I probably overspent about $15,000 with the previous aesthetics, which I should have just rolled into the function of the vehicle first.
Yep.
And then if it was for me, if I could go back in time, I would have not done aesthetics first, which is what I did to both of the trucks. And then I ended up fixing the mechanical things later, which added 20% of cost,
And that's just good. That's valuable thing to share with people, because trust me, man, we see it all the time where people take even worse, a truck that's fully rusty and should not be repaired.
Right.
And they take it and they just send it to a paint and body shop, put stuff 2x4s underneath it to hold up the body so that the doors will close, but it's painted all slick. And then they go then they're in really trouble.
So I've driven both of my old Scouts after they look amazing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, uh-oh.
It's not really drivable.
It's like a suicide mobile. And I'll gladly take an old rusty looking patina machine that actually functions really well.
Yep.
Over something that's pretty. But, if I can make some advice to some of the viewers, if you're going to do it all the way, do it right, pre-plan it out.
Yeah, that's
You know what I mean? And
Educate yourself.
Yeah, educate yourself on what you want. You know, for me, every time I get in that truck, and I turn it on, I spent a great deal of money for most of America when it comes to restoring an old car. But there's this feeling that is not replicable in other things, and it's worth it to me because you know, at the very least, I think that these cars are gonna hold their value.
For sure, man.
They at least hold their value. So why not enjoy your time? You know, when I roll up right on the corner, didn't some guy just say, "Hey, man, nice Jeep"?
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I'm glad they didn't say Bronco." Right?
That's right. And you were gracious.
Yeah, of course. I've learned in my young 40 years now it's not as important to correct people.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just the tonality and the sentiment that they were happy for you.
Yeah.
We're good.
And it brought, like, that dude was smiling, man.
He was.
So just something like you driving something cool connected with something in him to go, dude, that is cool. I like seeing that.
Yeah.
And that's pretty rad.
And I think that what's cool is that, you know, I don't find a lot of, you know, I'm from Los Angeles, very multicultural here.
Mm-hmm.
But to find some, maybe there's one or two other guys that I know that are either Asian or Pacific Islander that are into these things.
Yeah.
But you got to kind of have an old soul to love this kind of stuff, and then also to invest in these things.
Right.
But I think it's really cool in LA for people to respect these things.
For sure.
Where there's Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Mercedes and BMWs and Audis all over the place, right?
Right.
So, you know,
you guys are a part of you're at the heart of a pretty cool, vibrant, vintage 4x4 community. I mean, Scout specific, it's Scout kind of centric, but I love that. And we have an episode with this guy Mario from Tennessee, who's doing similar work in Nashville, and I just love that. Like from a guy who has lived and breathed and raised his family on Scouts. I love seeing people like you that are just like getting into it, appreciating them, celebrating them, becoming an evangelist, if you will, for like just pumping up things like this.
I think that initially, you know, I wanted to get caught up and create a scene for other people that were like me, you know, and we connected with a lot of guys that are actually in a similar place with their vintage Scouts that are LS swapped or guys that are just trying to create this market, you know, but now that I have the truck, it's for me.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's for me and my family first. And honestly, I don't give a rat's ass about anything anymore. Now that I have it.
Yeah.
You know? And I think, one other advice that I'm going to give to the viewers. Be patient for the build. Be patient. Let it be done right. Actually, part of the fun is the wait. I know that sounds weird. But actually, you know, one piece of advice was given to me a long time ago. A man who delays pleasure, who can delay it, finds more meaning and value in life. If you got a guy that's always rushing to get, you know, satiated and hedonistic in his manner to satiate what he wants, you know, whether it's in women or cars or booze or whatever it is, it cheapens the actual experience. And I sent the truck to you, you know, almost a year back, maybe 11 months ago. But part of the romantic thing that happens between a builder and the owner of the car is the relationship that develops in between. So I forgot to say, I would give that advice. Enjoy the process. I knew that towards the end I was feeling impatient. Yeah. But when I felt that impatient, that's when I told you, take your time.
Yeah, interesting.
Because I want you to take your time, because I want this to be done right. And part of me also was like, you know what? It'll come. Yep. And once it's here, I want to, you know, there's this delaying of pleasure that it's also a big part of it. I know that sounds crazy to most people, but
no, that's good. And from the builder perspective, I know my guys and our whole team, we deeply appreciate that, to go, okay, we can just get this right versus just getting it done quick, because it's hard to do both, very hard. And sometimes, and I get it, like I especially get it, I understand. Point is, but it's just, yeah, when you get someone that's like super excited, or they start losing trust, like, because maybe they've been burned a couple times before, so they're like, this guy's gonna run off with my money, and like, I'll go to Iowa and there's be nothing there. It's like
managing expectations of your clients. Yeah. Because this is not like you're buying a tractor for work. This is someone's dream.
That's right.
Right. This is for some people, it's their vacation. It's how they get away and escape reality. That's all they have. So that's a lot of pressure. You know what I mean? But I think that, you've always given me the green light. Come visit us in Iowa. You can see what we're doing here, right? I think that people, if you're just patient and just know it's gonna come, you'll get a quality product. It's better to wait for something than to rush it. Rush something.
Yeah, for sure, man. And that's good. That's really good advice. Okay, so what's next for Matt, man? What do you got on the agenda? What is the coming kind of next 2 to 5 years?
In terms of what?
I don't know.
Cars?
Just Scout Adventure, your business. I know you're actively growing your business and looking at what's next. But yeah, maybe we'll hone it into like, what do you want to do in the Scout? What are a couple things you want to do in the Scout?
Well, I think the first little things is I want to take my son out and do a father-son camping trip.
Rad.
I've never done that before.
Both you guys are gonna freak out. It's gonna be so good.
I think it's gonna be cool. I mean, there's some cool local spots up there, like Leo Carrillo.
Yeah.
Even down in San Diego, San Onofre.
Yeah.
I would love to go to Big Sur and just go on the beach and just drive it out there.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do with, look, the reality is I don't have as much free time as some people do. Like, they live in their Scouts and they're all over.
Right.
They're going to, Expo West or they're Expo East or they're going around. So that's why Instagram is also really good, because you get to live vicariously through the social media. But in regards to the Scout, I think that it's just about living every day with it. I found myself driving it every single day to work last week.
Sweet.
And
you're so stoked, dude. The weather down here is awesome. So like you can really drive it, even with a soft top, like almost year round.
Yeah, I think so. Outside of that, when you have a young family, you're thinking about what you can do together.
Yeah.
I had these fantasies, while the truck was being built, was just putting in the car seats, driving on the freeway together, playing some oldies, some music. These are all fantasies, by the way. They're all like made up stories.
But it's real. Like, this is what I say over and over. Like, a vintage 4x4 can make the mundane memorable. So like if you hop in the Audi, take your kids to ice cream, it's all about the ice cream.
Right.
They don't care. It's just an annoyance to have to go to sit in the car.
Right.
But now you do the same exact thing in the Scout, and they're like, ice cream what? Like, we're just stoked to be like ripping around and feeling the wind. And
it's funny, I also find myself listening to classic rock, like Fleetwood Mac and all these like guys, the Eagles, just because it's a 70s track. I think this is 70s rock.
That's classic.
And I'm just busting it out and just like, this is awesome.
That is awesome.
And I think a part of my dreams is like, I want to get on PCH. I want to drive down to a secluded beach and just drive onto the sand and just, really
Instagram the mess out of it.
True, but I also feel bad. I feel bad about that part of social media. You're so concerned. Like, for me, I like documenting parts of my life.
Yeah, which I appreciate that.
And I do a lot of documenting of my kids and my life. I've done it my whole life before social media.
Yep.
And that's what I see myself doing, and I think that, outside of business, we're going to keep grinding. I think that one day in the future when we exit the business and we live a more simpler life, I would love to live in a different city.
Yeah.
I'd love to live in somewhere that's more rural, something that's a little slower, because life is fast here in LA.
Yeah, for sure.
So
you've had some cool cars. You've had a Scout.
Yeah.
You have a Scout.
I have a Scout again.
Are you hooked?
Of course.
The
hardest part is that I have also this disease called upgradeitis.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
Of course. That's how I live.
So I'm already like, I wonder in a year's time if I'm going to send it back and be, changing the chassis and, doing all that, in the future.
It's part of the fun, man. It really is. And but first, Moab.
Dude, I'm ready, man.
We want to, as a company, encourage people to get out and explore. And we realize that a lot of people don't have the ability to go out, and like, for you to just go totally by yourself to Moab would be a big move.
It would be
to go together, get Manny, get Bill, get all these dudes together, get our scouts together. Then it's super fun. It's an event. We're there for each other. We can take our time.
Well, I think the idea of getting on the road, right, going to Moab. By the way, I've already pre-warned my wife months ago.
Good.
Moab.
Double
May, Moab.
M's.
Don't. I'm going. She goes, as long as it's not my son's graduation weekend for kindergarten. So I said, all right. But anyways, there's something really about, driving out there, caravanning with people that are in the same boat as you.
It's going to be fun, man.
And I think just, here in LA, we've got we'll have a meeting, there are like 15 to 20 scouts.
Yeah, which is awesome.
And it's cool because everyone has their own different version of it. It's not like a cookie cutter thing. And I think that when we go out to Moab, we'll be able to see all the awesome new legend and anything scout builds come together. And I think it'll be an amazing adventure.
Fun. So Matt, thanks very much, man. We got to wrap it up.
Yep.
But amazing. Thank you for your hospitality and kicking it at your house. Thanks for the Brazilian barbecue. So good.
Well, we got to try something else next time.
Yeah, Matt's like another thing we appreciate. We'll talk again next episode. We do together. But just the appreciation for food, because I don't think that's completely disconnected with appreciating vintage 4x4s.
Interesting.
Appreciating good food, appreciating good fellowship and experience. And so we'll dig into that next time.
Thank you, Sean.
All right. Till next time. Thanks for listening and watching. Follow Matt at Scouty Pippin.
Scout II Pippin.
Scout II Pippin on Instagram. He has a great channel. It's fun. A feed. What is it called? A feed?
I don't know.
It's
just a profile, I guess. We get connected to. But Scout E Pippin. That's a play on words, right? The II. It's a little Scout 2 Pippin.
And Matt is also super gracious about talking to people. So hit him up on Instagram, and your account's gonna blow up.
Yeah. Look. If I talk to people are respectful, I respect them back.
Yeah.
If they're not, which is almost not the case.
Right.
Everyone's really respectful. Whatever. I'll share my honest assessment and experience with everything that I do.
It's awesome. Thanks again, Matt. See you next time.